Alright folks, the following 2+ hour video is going to be me wandering through old project files from all the songs on my latest album, Relentless Relay, and giving commentary about my creative process. I'm hoping it provides a very broad stroke representation of how I like to make music, specifically music for my Peaks and Valleys project. I know it's pretty different from my usual content, which is usually succinct and edited, and this is pretty much me just waffling on about things as they come up. It's not going to be for everyone, but I figured I'd give this sort of thing a shot and see if it can provide something useful as a glimpse into someone else's way of working. I kind of have a way of leaving a trail of breadcrumbs by using version numbers, as you can see in this current project folder. This is the song Start, by the way. I have temporary names for all my projects that I'm working on, and this one happened to be Coal Beat. And it usually has, I name it because it has something to do with an instrument I'm using or what it sounds like, or maybe I'll just use the date. In this case, I was working on my 2 drum kits instrument rack and the collision kit in particular. This is a early version of it. And so I called it Coal Beat, and it starts like this. This was the first basic idea that I had down for this song, and it's mainly this drum beat. And that kind of stayed fairly similar throughout. And then I have a little keyboard part from my Yamaha CS, Reface CS. And another bass part that got cut eventually. An arpeggio from Repro. And what else? This looks like it's not being used. And then this guitar, which also didn't get used, but it kind of influenced the choppy, quick guitar that I have in there later. So this is how it began. And let's go to the next file and see what changed. So now you can see I've got a bit of an arrangement down. Usually once I get an idea like that loop that you just heard, I'll try to either add parts, add a second section, or arrange it out in some way. So here, I've got this bass that definitely didn't make the final version. This happens a lot. I go through a lot of dead ends in working on my songs. And here's that choppy guitar that might have gotten re-recorded at the end, but the basic idea is there. So really just a basic arrangement of the parts that I already had. Let me see what this is. Okay, and then I had this bass pad, I guess, come in. And that's about it for this version. Little bits at a time, that's how I work. This version, slightly modified arrangement still. Let me check what this is. Tighter guitars. Freezing the repro because it takes a boatload of CPU. Oh, and I know what this is. This is the siren noise, I believe. I wanted to transition to amp up the energy, so you'll hear it here in a second. It's quiet, but you get the idea. It kind of sirens into these other CS chords. And you'll notice here that I got some choppy rhythms in the guitar and drums to sort of trip things up a little bit. And you might notice there's a little funky, it sounds like there's a a beat skipped or missing. And we'll get to that later on, but just watch out for that. Let's move on to the next thing. Okay, here is where that time gap was fixed. So I'm not sure, I never kind of looked into why this was happening, but I needed one less eighth note to make what I had sound good. And taking out an eighth note by putting in a 15 by 16 bar here is what made it work. And you'll listen, it sounds fine now. And I do things like that sometimes. I have a lot of odd time signatures going with other odd time signatures, and you know, sometimes you just need to take an eighth note out to make your fill sound better. So that's what I did. And let's see what else we got. I've got this little thing I call pan marimba because I wasn't sure if it was a pan drum sound or a marimba sound from Collision, but just acting like a little extra percussion. You can hear it. Everything sounds very rough and unmixed. I'm not worrying about that at this point in the process. I'm just trying to figure out what the song is going to be overall contour-wise. And this one I can tell I kind of got a little stuck on because I'm not adding any new parts and I'm really just fine-tuning the arrangement at this point. Let's move on. It doesn't look like a whole lot has changed in this version except some organization of tracks. I have a general rule of putting drums at the top, then bass, then maybe harmony parts, and then melody towards the bottom. And I'll organize the tracks as I go, and it kind of just helps me keep track of where things are. But going back to this versioning, sometimes you'll notice I'll put notes in here as to what I changed, like that time shift in this one, and others we'll get to. Other times I will save a version before I start working, and that is a nice way of kind of clearing my head, knowing I have what I had before, and now I can maybe take a bigger risk, and I know it's going to be, the old version is going to be saved, and I don't feel like I have to worry about messing it up. So I can take bigger risks and try out different things, and I can always go back to the old version. So some of these we'll skip through if there isn't much important that has changed. Sometimes it's just little mix things. Sometimes, you know, it could be any reason. All right, looks like I was working on some new guitar. I have, what is this? This did not make it in. I forgot I even did this. This is with my filament instrument, adding some harmonies. It's kind of interesting, but I don't know what happened with that idea. What is this? This is the beginning of the guitar solo. And this was never used. So for my guitar, let me turn this down, hold on. All right, let me check out this guitar. A lot of times I'll record just improvising and I'll cut up bits and pieces because most of it will be horrible. But I'll cut out the parts that I like and edit it together, and in this case it became a solo. Other cases it could become various parts to the song or loops or anything like that. In this case, I record my guitar direct because it's easier, and I honestly don't really love amped guitar sounds in my music as peaks and valleys. I mean, I love amped guitar sounds in other projects, but for this, I like a clean kind of sometimes synthy guitar sound, and so I'll use very basic stuff like EQ, compression, and reverb is usually about it. You can see I'll edit. I have no problems editing things that I messed up. About editing, by the way, sometimes I'll manually edit and sometimes I'll warp edit. If I can get away with manually editing it, I will, like this, like just moving it around a little bit until it fits, because then there's no change in the quality of the audio, and if there's gaps, it's super easy. Otherwise, sometimes you need to use, especially if it's things stuck together, you need to use warping to get it to sound better, but it's a case-by-case basis. And this is a pretty rough edit as I'm sort of picking out the pieces. I remember working a lot on how to edit this guitar together, as you'll see. All right, let's move on. All right, so right off the bat, I could see we have a lot more guitar editing, and I think this CS part is new. Let me just solo this. I have a CS low and a CS high part, and just creating a background atmosphere building up towards the end. It can be nice to, as a change of pace, work with just recording synths in. I mean, I use obviously Ableton synths a ton, but it's a different mindset when you record it in as audio, and there's advantages to both. But in this case, it remained less changed because it was audio through the whole way. Let me see what's going on with these guitars. It's basically delayed parts, so this is this part repeated, and I have it sort of manually repeating. And reversed, all sorts of stuff like that, just to create a solo. Again, I'm still feeling out the edit of this and the sound. It changed a lot. Let's move on. This one's titled Repro Bounce, so I obviously just converted that to audio. And it looks like I have some guitar at the beginning here. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So I wanted to add just a little bit of an intro part with the guitar. What else? You can hear the form starting to come together a little bit. I have an acoustic. What is this? These two are echoing the parts, but I never kept this acoustic. If you're ever stuck and don't know where to go with a song, it can be really useful to just record a part with a different instrument, the same part, and to see if that helps, you know, get any ideas. And it's super easy to do because you already have the idea. All you need to do is just find a different sound for it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it didn't, but it's always worth a shot. To make this, to bolster the siren sound, I recorded a defam part to go along with it. This is going to be annoying. I warned you. But in the context of the song, I don't know, it just brings you into the next section with a siren. What can I say? All right, let's move on. This... Okay. I think I had the CS part go on for a long time, and possibly the repo part. That doesn't look edited though. And I did not want it to outro for that long, so I think I just shortened it. And I think it's still too long, but look at this. Back to too long. Let me see what's going on here. Clearly, I was indecisive. Still, the form has barely changed. It's really baby steps with this one. But I'm going to move right on to this redo solo version here. All right, redo solo. I do not know what this sounds like. Sounds like I was redoing it exactly as it was, double tracking it, or just trying to make it better. But I don't think I kept this part. I think I kept the original. I remember it taking a long time to be really satisfied with this solo part, how it was done and edited. Much to listen to just yet. Let's keep moving to 2.0. Sometimes for bigger changes, sometimes I just run out of numbers, but if there's a bigger change in the sound, I'll just like software versioning, I'll go to 2.0, 3.0. This one, I added guitar at the end. Let's check it out. I remember having the trouble of not knowing how I wanted this outro to go, and I added this choppy guitar part here. Listen. It just adds a texture. And in this version, it was just going on for way too long. I remember liking the contour of this CS ramp that is buzzing up here, but I couldn't get it to work for this long and to sound decent, so I know I eventually chopped it down. Alright, this one's called Remix, so let's see, I might have... Yeah, it's already clear, I can tell, but I probably did a bunch of mix work on it between that and the last one. I can tell it's shorter, too. Let's see what's going on here. Got a sidechain compressor just ducking away at this CS ramp. Clearly, I did not know how to end it. But it's starting to take shape a little bit, how it ended up. Alright, so definitely some more mixing and editing in this version. I could tell the guitars look edited a little bit more. With guitars like this, I like them like dead on. And so if they're a little bit, I mean, they need to be a little bit off so they don't phase too much, but I like them pretty dead on, and if they're not, I'll just edit them how they need to be. Let's see what else is going on here. See how this solo's doing. Still doesn't sound quite right. But it's starting to form. I think I've got it mostly edited how it's gonna be. It's sort of playing the guitar and then the keyboard jumps in. And then the ending too, now that it's shorter, is more or less how it is in the end. I'm going to go through, once I get to the final version, I can go through and show you a little bit more what I did sound-wise, but it can change so much during this whole process that going through each of these tracks, it'd be kind of pointless. All right, I'm going to skip ahead to the final version here. A lot of this stuff in between is all mix details, and I'm not even sure what would have changed between all these, so I think it'll be easier just to go to the end one, and I can explain a little bit how I created some of these sounds. So for the CS, just basic compression and reverb, some tape simulation from the Reason rack, and the guitar, also basic EQ compression, spectral resonator, and then I have this pitch loop that kind of keeps the guitar going into this other section out of the intro. Repro, just some EQ, reverb, guitar, saturator, EQ, compression, basic stuff. I have this delay come on towards the end. The drums are my Cole kit, early version, but it's gonna sound better, the one that you can buy, and a drum bus. Let's see, for this solo, I've got some saturator, EQ compression, a little bit of amp, and this Corpus amp sim, which I have a video about this, but you can really thicken up the sound of the guitar with just a little bit of Corpus. More basic EQ. Dirty this sound up a bit with pedal and saturation. And some sidechain compression, I think. And we just kind of fade out to the end here. This is one of those songs that felt like it was never changing, and then finally I was like, I'm done with it. And that's how it works probably most of the time for me. Oh, let me look at the master chain here. Pretty basic. Multi-band compression. This is a preset just called multi-band compression, and I really, really like it on the master channel. And I'll usually back down the input to usually the lower and mid frequencies, because I tend to create my music with very little highs, very warm, dull sounds, and it's like a trap for me. I can't get out of it. So this thing just helps compress the lower frequencies, and then I'll dial these thresholds where they need to be to make it sound how I want it. But I just love this preset for the multiband compressor. And that's it. There's a hybrid reverb. I'm a super basic one. Near stock. I think I'm using the Quartz algorithm here. Let's see what's sending there. I got Siren sending there. CS ramp. CS. That's about it. So I got the reverb for the guitar right on the guitar track. Oh, it looks like the same reverb. I never know what I'm thinking. But that's about it for this track. So let's move on to the next. So this track, called Broken Loops, temporarily called Guitar to Delay, is quite old. and I was creating it kind of around when I have some videos called Alive 1, Alive 2 videos on my channel, and they're just kind of live looped videos. This was going to be one of those, but I could never get it to work out well enough, and I ended up just releasing it on the album. So I haven't gone through these in a long time. I'm actually kind of curious. I don't remember how this track started at all. Let's see. Some guitar loops. A little atmosphere guitar. A looped part there. All very dull sounding. Just have some old reverb on there. Oh no, hold on. I think this is not loading up. I have a impulse response of my amp, DeVille 410, and I think it's not loading up right now, so I'm gonna move along though, instead of tracking that down. And bass. Trying to find good chords on here on the piano. And I have this drum kit, stock Ableton one from one of the drum session kits. So as you can see, just a super, super basic idea. Let's see where it went from here. Let's see, the piano is just got this odd loop to it compared to the guitars. I have a basic harmonic progression going with the bass. And then I guess I like these piano chords here. Just kind of moving up in these arpeggiated chords. Pretty basic. Let's see where we went from here. So I'm trying to find some sort of arrangement here, it looks like. I'm gonna speed through this one because a lot of these are gonna be pretty small changes, I think. Let's see what else we got. All right, got some shaker and tammering now. And some guitar parts that I don't think made it. Let's see what the drums are doing. Kind of the same. Yeah. You can take time to decide where you want a song to go from, like the basic loops that you have. I know a lot of other people have that challenge too, that it can be easy to just get some ideas out, just a loop going, and then what do you do with it? And I struggle with that just as much as everyone else. And you can see that it's just small refinements for me that slowly get it on a path that leads it to where it ends up going. I wish I had some sort of clear answer for how to do that. But I do not. I struggle with it with every song that I make. Let's see where we go from here. Some automation. Starting to form some sort of song form. Not many other changes though. So the drums started coming together when I put this Smacko's tape station on, which is a free rack from Lego Welt. If you go to his site, he's got some free racks that sound pretty awesome that you can download. And this one in particular, weak drums, fat drums. It sounds pretty good. But we're gonna keep moving on here. Here's where I have that DeVille amp sim going on. And the piano at the same time. What's going on here? So things are starting to form up a little bit by a little bit, but it's still pretty basic at this point. I wanted a different section, so I had no idea what to do. Let's keep moving, see if I found out what to do. Oh, I put in this little drum fill here at this point, I think. Which I really liked for some reason. It's just... pounding on some open hi-hats with some snare fills. But I always liked how that sounded. Alright, let's keep going, as if live looped. So here is probably where I was trying to get all these parts together to be able to live loop them. Vocals, I don't recall these. Oohs. Well, let's keep those off because they did not make it. Okay, so I think here you can see everything's looped, and at this point, if I wanted this to be a live loop song, I need a way to have the arrangement come in so that I have enough time to play and record a loop, change to a different instrument, and record another loop. And so you need space, and you need to really think about arrangement when you do that. And that was part of the problem with why this track never got to be a live looped track, because to make the arrangement that I wanted, I just wouldn't have had enough time to switch instruments. And that was part of the struggle I remember having. But I started with the tambourine. I would have added in this piano. Looped it, grabbed a guitar. Record the guitar over it, mirroring the piano. Either I would have had the drums pre-programmed or I would have tried to play this loop in, I'm not sure. But now all the pieces of the puzzle are kind of there. I think that's also why I didn't care about the sound of these too much, because I knew it didn't end up being live looped, but I was thinking that it was going to be live looped and these were going to be recorded independently anyway. But what happens to me is that sometimes I'll get married to the sound that I originally recorded something as, even if it's not supposed to be the final thing. If it's a scratch track, I'll really like that sound and get attached to it, and then if I re-record it, it just doesn't sound right to me. And that can be a problem too that I have. What is this operator? Oh, a melody idea that I did not like, so I shut off. But you can see now that I got a different drum part for a second section here. And I guess I wanted some vocals too, which never made it. So let's keep moving. Sometimes if I have an arrangement and I want a second part of the song, I'll move back to session view and just try new things with some of the sounds or parts I already have. So I think I was doing that here with this this guitar. I don't know. I have a delay on a return track. But otherwise, not much has changed. These are different chords. Oh, what does that mean? They're different chords. Trying out new things that never made it. What is this? Oh, I have a little solo part at the end of this song that I think this stemmed from. I was just sort of trying to find a melody in there somewhere, I guess. So I'll improvise like this. Let's just see what's what. Alright, let's keep moving. I can see in my notes that I went from a layout live test to studio, which means it was at that point that I gave up on this being a live looped song and just tried to make it a track instead. So I think just about the only new part here is in this end section. I finalize this little solo part for the guitar. Reverb that Corpus amps him. I use this a lot on this album. I use this a lot in general, just like it. I think from here I'll move on to the final version to show you guys how this ended up sounding. So starting off with the tambourine. Oh, the piano, I've got an upright piano that I recorded for this. Lots of EQ on it. I've got my impulse response from my amp on the guitar. Drums, pretty simple. That Steely kit with a drum bus and that Smackos tape station. I don't even, let's see. Yeah, EQ on the guitar bus. Compression. Bass, it's just my bass guitar. I've got a cheap Ibanez bass. It does the job. These piano chords sort of just transition this first section into the second section. Drum bus on the guitar bus and drastic EQ. I like thinned out guitar, only mid-range guitar. And it bites me in the ass every time I mix, but it's what I like, so I just try and work around it. This was a very simple song, and I've had it sitting around for a long time, and I just felt like it finally fit on this album. So that's it. This is a bit of a rare track for me, mainly because it didn't take too long to come together. And it's a very simple track. And it's also different for me because I used a lot of sequencers rather than the arrangement. You'll notice the working title is all fours, and that was because this track is done only with instruments from Fours FM. If you go to fours.fm, they have some amazing, just absolutely amazing Max for Live devices, all sorts of stuff, sequencers, effects, and instruments. And in particular, they have these small little kit devices, which are just so much fun to use, especially when you're, used to diving into a million parameters on the stock Ableton instruments, just to have something that's so quick and easy and sounds good. I just love them. So I made this track out of only Fours instruments, except for some stock stuff for mixing. But you'll notice a lot of these tracks are blank, and that's because there's these sequencers playing. And I'm going to have to start this from the very beginning because the lengths of the sequencers are sometimes a little different. And so if I start it from the middle, it's not going to sound right. Things aren't going to line up. So I'm just going to play this from the start and we'll go through each of these tracks. Starts off with a Lux device through some reverb and delay with a sequence that's just kind of hitting random things. We got a kick drum. Let me go through these sounds first. So we got a kick drum from Lux. This dot thing is creating a little variety. This is a, what do you call them, Euclidean sequencer, where you can adjust, I'm not going to mess this up right now, but you can adjust how many times it hits, and there's two of these going on playing the same note to add a little variety. I have a doublet, which is a snare, I guess, yep. That's it, just adding some snare in there. Oops, let's see. Pop, just adding some more rhythm via this dot sequencer again. Chiral is doing some bass work. Again, also just a sequence that I already had in for this roulette. And then some chords. Oh, let me replay those. What's going on here? Oh, that rhythmic. Hold on, let me play this again. So this chain has this hue device, which is an EQ that will rhythmically activate, also by these little Euclidean sequencers. But having just that on, it was a little too intensive an effect for me. So I have two that don't have that on and have a lot more high frequencies coming through. And then this, I'm going to play it from the beginning here, because this track is kind of what the whole song is about, is this pluck. This is free, by the way, this one. It's a Carplus-drawn device, and you'll see what it sounds like in a second. But I have this expression control, adding randomness and adding randomness to what? Position. And this song is being doubled by doublet. Let me hear what what these are like. And then this is... This bass is going to sound out of whack now that I started it here, but that's alright. So I very carefully sequenced this to get it to sound like a real instrument. An acoustic instrument. Anyway, some sort of string. It's kind of a hybrid between acoustic and electronic. This was a fun one. It's just I think in every album I do, there's one just simple, happy song that was the least stressful of them all to make, and this one happens to be that one for this album. Yeah, that bass is not supposed to be there, but there you have it. Oh, this song's name is Blithe. I think because of the carefree nature of the whole track, but this pluck sound in particular. You'll notice I really got on a kick with these 4's FM devices. This one mainly a doublet. I called it double kit, probably because doublet and the kit devices I was using. That's how I come up with names. I haven't heard this in a long time from this long ago. The basic chords are there. They never changed, I don't think. Those drums definitely changed. Hold on a second, let me turn this up. This little repro craziness. Arpeggio. Not much to start off with, huh? But every song's got to start somewhere. Let's see where it goes. By the way, I'm skipping to this 1.1 version because 1.0, nothing changed here. Sometimes when I know a track is going to keep going, it's going to have legs, then I'll just name it 1.0. And then that kind of differentiates it from things that are just ideas that usually end up getting trashed or put in my hold folder. So nothing really changed here, but in the 1.1, here's what we got. The doublet sound, the chords are the same, the sound's a little brighter. Now these drums, some craziness going on there. I've got a flanger and a delay to two different delays for each channel, so it's kind of crazy in headphones. Now this drum sound is a combination of Reason drum kits and this acoustic kit that I put together from some of the stock Ableton multi-mic kit stuff. And on their own, they just add together to create an interesting drum kit sound. And I've used this before on other tracks, maybe on this album, but definitely on my last album too. If I want an acoustic kit, I'll do something like this. Tambourine and shaker. Always just adds so much to add extra percussion for me. Just immediately makes things feel better. Bass. I was obviously trying out a few different things, but wound up with just this E rhythmically playing. That got changed eventually. Let's see what's going on with this guitar. I'm a little nervous about this all here. Let's try it. Got those octaves. Let's turn that off. That guitar didn't make it. What's this? Bass, maybe? Mislabeled. And this little August synth that I love. I mentioned that on my channel before. But I don't think these chords made it into this track. Let me see what's going on here, because sometimes I'll do this where I'll, let me turn off some of these. I'll just improvise and find little parts. And they don't always make it, but sometimes they can help just move the song forward. And I don't think any of these made it into the final version. But it just, sometimes you just gotta keep working and keep adding. And it's okay to toss that stuff out. That's just a bass note. What's this? Yeah, and then I repeated that, I guess, on the analog bass. All right, let's keep moving. Not much different here. I have this guitar that also didn't make it. Just laying down some chords. Rhythm anyway. Higher octave. Just trying things. I remember being stuck here with this song, like, what do I do now? I remember that. I do color coding after a while. Sometimes everything starts gray and then I'll color code once I've got a, like, basses are blue, guitars are green, synths are either yellow or something else. Melody is usually red. Drums are black. Just helps me find things a little easier. And I'll do that after the song gets going. Once I know it's going to be something, I'll go in and do that organization. All right, let's see what we got next. Same thing, even more stripped down. This chords bounce down, so I don't have to deal with heavy CPU repro. All right, let's keep moving. We might skip a few things here. So usually if I feel stuck like I was doing in the last version, I will try and get out an arrangement and come up with a few other sections. So that's what I did for this, and added some vocals. Sometimes you can tell if a song just needs a vocal melody or some sort of vocal melody, and it's usually when oh, I changed the key, probably to fit my vocals. When it's got chords like this that just leave space for it. Let's see. Please ignore my scratch vocals. I probably didn't even have lyrics yet. Just figuring out the melody. But how it goes. Got the bass following a slight contour here. That got changed eventually too. Adding tambourine partway through. Let's see what we got up ahead here. Ah, the second section. Sometimes just adding vocals can help you think of another section. And this one, the first section's kind of dull. I wanted it to lift up in energy like a chorus would. And I have this really boring direct guitar sound. But I liked the bell-like part of it, and that stayed throughout. Let's see what we got here. a bunch of crap. Some funky guitar that never made it, and some rhythmic guitar that I have something like this way in the background in the final version, which I'm sure we'll get to. But you can see that a song has formed, and this is, I think, the only song on this album, and I rarely do typical song forms like A, B, or whatever it may be, and that's exactly what this is. A section, B section, A section, and then a B outro. And typically, those are the best to put vocals on, aren't they? Songs. So here I got that repro thing coming at the end, and this is really the skeleton of the song, but as you can tell, there is a lot of work to be done. Let's check it out. And this one we just have refinements. Horrible vocals that were edited heavily, trying to find something that works. I hate recording vocals. I don't know anyone who does like it, but it's tough, especially when you do it on your own, because you have to. There's nothing worse than editing your own vocals, I gotta say. Like, hearing your own bad voice over and over, going through all the bad parts. It's pretty demoralizing, but sometimes it works out in the end, I guess. Here I've got this part. I don't know why I kept trying to force that in. It does not work. Then I have those rhythmic guitars that just kind of hang in the back and elevate the second verse a little bit more, make it stand out from the first verse. I can already tell what's going on here, so let's go check out the vocal work. Now this vocal work, you can already tell what I was working on. And I recorded my electric bass. And made the chords follow, made the bass notes follow the chords a little bit more, because it was pretty static earlier, I believe. Just on that E, or whatever it was when I ended up changing the key. Now you can hear a better bass part in the in this chorus section here. It's so much nicer sometimes to just play the bass rather than... I'm not a keyboardist, I'm a guitarist, and so to come up with bass parts with a bass is much nicer sometimes. And then I added this extra guitar part, so instead of having a solo where you'd expect it, it comes back into the verse, and then I have this little guitar solo, and I really like it. I don't know why, but this bell-like guitar just turns into this solo. Box. This is part of those kit plugins, and there's a distortion. It's a reverb, but there's this distortion on here, and I just love it on guitar. It's really nice. And I have that solo repeated here in the right ear, just underneath, kind of, again, elevating this second verse. What do we got here? Bring back that guitar for that section. What's going on with the drums? Oh, these drums, they were giving me CPU problems. Or, oh, I know what it was. So, yes, I put an LFO on the delay. Let me just go back here so I can play this for you guys. Stereo to mono. That's what it's doing. It's not doing the delay. That's something else. So every measure, the drums go from stereo to mono. And I just liked how it sounded. It's really not a good idea to do mixing-wise. And then the delay comes in here. But, hey, I can do what I want with my music. So that's what's going on. So to work on the song without having to deal with starting and stopping this. Because right now, oh yeah, we're just hearing the drum bounce right now, but if we start and stop, hear it, get all off kilter, which when you're doing little edits is extremely annoying. So I just bounce the drums so that I wouldn't have to deal with it, and I can just start and stop. And they'll still have that automation baked in. All right, let's move on. So I just skipped most of these last versions because they were all mainly either re-recording what I already had to get a better take or mix choices. And we don't need to go through all those. You can see also I sped it up, I believe. It was just dragging, so I increased the tempo. Let's listen and see what we got. Yeah, I can already hear the speed difference. Vocals, I got EQ, compressor. Got this ego is a little delay unit. Fellow people. You can hear it kind of spreads things out and adds a little, almost like a reverb really, instead of a delay. This is a delay effect, but I'm using it here as a tape saturation. It's got these different, it's called reverbs, but there's different ones, and you have this. This is from that Roland Space Echo. It's an emulator of the Space Echo, which uses a tape. So they put a built-in tape effect, and if you push this only through the reverb, I think there's even a preset for it, you only get it going through the tape simulator. And what happens to, I have chorus on here, and if you put the mix 50 to 50%, it does a lot of heavy phasing, which you might not want, but on this I liked. Now listen to this. That sounds right? Not phased, and then 50%. It's just much more phased. This saturation as a whole. You can hear it thicken things up. What else did I do? I think I changed some chords up a little bit. Just adding a little bit of variety. Because you got the same chords going again and again, and it gets boring. This is with the master on, so I'm gonna turn this down a little bit so you can hear my voice. I think I have automated the cutoff to dull it down and bring it up. A classic trick to create a ramp of excitement going into this pre-verse solo, I guess. It needs to come back up a little bit. It's pretty much the song. I think if there's anything else noteworthy. Got some vocal ooze to end it. That's really about it. It's a fairly simple song as songs go. All right, let's move on to the next song. This is the song titled Omit, untitled for the working version. And it's a bunch of kit devices to start off with. And this is really, really the meat of the song. Hold on a second. So this drum part. And then these chords. I just liked the way it sounded, and I remember having a hard time trying to figure out what to do with it, but I didn't want to give up on it because I just thought it sounded cool. I don't know what Untitled Dog is. You know, I think this is Untitled OG for original. Let me see. Ah, yeah, okay. So this is where I first came up with those chord ideas. I had been improvising or just working on, if there's a lot of repeated notes, I was probably working on sound design or for this Lux device. And then eventually wound up playing something that I thought sounded cool. And then I'll use the capture button up here usually to just print all that I had been not recording, because I'm not recording when I do sound design. But this is the most useful feature for me, because if I wind up playing something that sounds cool, it's captured. And I edited these chords to fit, because this isn't going to be to any tempo here. So then I'll save it and try and edit what I had recorded so that it's nice and neat in to the tempo. All right, what do we got here? Something completely unexpected. Turn this down. Aphex Twin sounding drums. That didn't make it. What's this? Oh, I bounced things out. It's funny hearing this after knowing what the song becomes. Just improvising on some guitar, jamming out. Early versions. What's that? Amp in that box. You can see how much of that sound is coming from this little device here. Oh, some bad guitar playing. Trying to find ideas, and it sounds like I didn't find them. Alright, I think I remember drastically slowing down. You can see this was dramatically stretched out to create an intro, because I wanted this synth sound to just ramp in to itself. And then I added a few more parts, I think. Some drums. This was already in there, but I just added a little complementary part here. And then this synth ARP with some delay on it. I'm not sure what that came from, which is weird. Usually oh, here, probably this. An analog. Sometimes when I bounce things to audio, I'll put an unused group and put all my old bounce tracks. If I want to make another part with the same sound, I'll do this. Let me see if this is anything. Yeah, this is arpeggiated. Yeah. So it's just an analog arpeggio that I bounced out. What's going on with this guitar? So I used this trick a lot in some of my earlier albums, but I'm playing my guitar and I have a volume pedal, and I'll just play a note. After it's played, I'll ease up the volume so that the guitar has like a slow attack to it, and I do this into a very, very long reverb, because then it gets this atmospheric sound like this, which I adore, and I used to use it a lot. I've been using it less more recently, but I just love that sound. What else is going on here? Trying to find a melody or something, but that didn't keep. I got some more defam percussion. Boring right now, but I thicken that up later. What's going on here? Oh. This didn't end up happening, but I think the idea was I was going to have this dark, dreary piece kind of somehow meld into this more groovy acoustic piece, but somewhere along the line I dropped that idea. All right, let's move on to the next version. Colors. Let's listen. Yeah, this part stayed. So that sort of melding the acoustic into it did help progress the song along, even if I didn't do exactly what I intended to do in the last version. Just helping add parts, add ideas, anything you can do to help find that idea that helps you continue the song. Still pretty basic arrangement here. I was still figuring out what this song was going to be. So let's keep moving. All right, I'm skipping to the end on this one because not a lot changed in here. I did mainly mix tweaks. I did a lot of re-recording and editing to get this acoustic guitar part to sound good. And a lot of this song was just making it sound cool and being okay with it being just a simple kind of dark atmospheric song and not needing it to go anywhere else. So I'm going to play it from here because there's an intro with the synth just to set the tone, and then these drums kick in. Hold on, I don't have my master chain on. And I've sectioned off where the sort of loop in the chord changes is so that I can it helps me arrange it, knowing where to add things. That's about it. Some EQ and compression on the acoustic. So automation going on here, which I do with these utility plugins, just to bring things in and out. These drums are from my little pops are from my Reface CS pack. But it's a pretty simple song, and just a little atmospheric dark piece, and that's it. What is this? Some DFAM loops, off time. A wavetable pad that actually stayed in the song till the end. What else we got? Some random drums created into a drum rack. What's this? CS, but that is guitar. Yeah, when I'm making ideas to start with, I can be pretty messy. So, I mean, what is this even? Let's see where it goes. It's funny listening back to these sometimes just to see the paths I took. Some synth ideas that I never used. Crap stuff. But this drum kit, that's made up of DFAM glitchy samples. And things just move along from there. Let's see. So this song took some time to work out. I remember liking just this sound and chord, two-note chord thing of this wavetable device. And sometimes if I want variety in percussion or trying to figure out percussion, I'll just change a few things at a time. Like I started with this, and then I'll change a few notes. Change a few. Just to see what else I can come up with. Something more sparse. And I think I took bits and pieces of these when I arranged this to create what ultimately ended up being the final drum beat. I have some probability going too, I think. Yeah, on some of the notes to just create variances. This guitar, what's this? Oh, something out of tune. Let's forget about that. Alright, let's see where we went from here. Drastically reduced. Missing media files. That's the drums. Let me just see what this guitar is. Oh, what was I thinking? Trying to figure something out, so just soloing over it. You get pretty desperate sometimes to find an idea, or sometimes you just want to rock out on your guitar for a bit and not care about what happens. let's move on. So here it looks like I was using launch, what do you call those again? This follow actions to launch these in randomly. Let's just see what we got here. So all those drum patterns I have just cycling around, and then I have that pad playing slightly different chords each time, cycling around. And then with the guitar, let me see, yeah. I'll do this where I'll do a jam and then hold on, let me see. And then I'll create different loops. I think these are all the same file, but this one's looped over here. Just picking out different things to use and edit. And especially if this is done from like a improvised solo, like maybe 90% of it will be horrible, but you'll find these little spots that if you isolate them, sound interesting. And it can help you come up with parts. I can tell I'm trying to find some sort of contour to this, and I'm using probability to do it. Let's see what ends up happening. Alright, I added this filament part, which I don't think made it into the final version. This guitar part that just loops over and over. And then I might have just hit record while the follow actions filled this in for me, or I placed them manually. I don't remember, probably a mix of both, just to try and desperately try and find some sort of form. I remember having trouble with that, like liking the loop, not knowing how to form a sound from it. And you can see how much time it takes sometimes to do that. And eventually it'll just pop out at you. Or with enough work, you just slowly chisel it down. Let's see. There's probably a little refinement here for 2.1. Just trying out different variations, I think. I'm going to keep moving here. So adding some parts that stuck finally. I've got this wavetable, an echo, doing an arpeggio, and then this Lux device kind of doing a guitar part. And then I landed on just a few of these drum loops that I liked. Stretch them out over time. I think they get busier as they go. What's this guitar? Ah, yeah. Just 2 notes played up and down. So still trying to find the form. Let's keep moving. Oh boy, what's this? Chords. Lots of chords. So sometimes, instead of just playing the different chords, if I want to arrange it in live, I'll do this where I'll just play a bunch of chords, I think is what I did, and then edited little loops of them so that I could just hit what I need from here rather than deal with figuring it out on guitar first, because sometimes you don't know and you don't want to do it and record it perfectly. You just want to have something there that you can just drop in and then re-record later. So I think that's what I did here. Nothing's let me see here. The arrangement. I don't even know if this stayed in. Let's see. Things are a bit of a mess right now. What's this? That's nice. Just adding little bits like that can help you figure out arrangement too. Reharmonizing. Shaker. Little by little. Alright, what's next? I might move ahead here. Alright, here we go with tighter arrangement. You can see it's a little more organized too. Looks like I have a chord loop settled upon. Drum pattern mostly settled upon. Arrangement coming together, building up a bit. Let's skip ahead here. This chiral synth repeating that thing. Response and call for this guy. Let's move up to this acoustic and whatever this is. So here you can see the acoustic just does its thing, providing rhythm in the background. A little harp-like sound from tension. So it looks like I've been adding some guitar. That's interesting. Got Hugh doing some rhythmic stuff. Crane delay providing sustain almost with the way it's feeding back there and a short delay. So you can really see how it's baby steps for me working on a track. And that's also because I sometimes really only have a very short amount of time to work on this stuff. Like I'm talking 15 minutes, half an hour blocks of time. And that's just the reality of it. I don't have more time than that. And it can mean that I just add one little part at a time. But it is what it is. Let's go see what carving form is. All right, some new guitar. What? Ooh, something's up. That's interesting, but kind of not fitting right yet. I don't know if that ends up staying in there. I might skip to the end here. All right, here's the final version. I'm not going to play it from the beginning, but maybe around here. Definitely messed with the percussion a lot. This is one of those songs where you work on it, you work on it, you work on it, and one day you open the project and you play it back and you're like, is this done? I don't know what else I could do to make this better. And you either decide to shelve it or to release it. And this one I liked enough to release. But that's how it works sometimes. Iron out the arrangement so that at least provides interest the whole way through. I was going for a bit more of an ambient-ish vibe on this album where things moved slowly, form changed slowly. You can see that a lot on these tracks. So I embraced that and decided to just keep things simple. Crazy guitar. Wait, what was this? So that did stay in. You can barely hear it though. Just adds rhythm to keep things moving along. For me, one of the things that worked about this track was how the drums progressed from this sparse, kind of don't know where one is type feel, and then kept changing, adding little bits and pieces. You can see that these are no longer loops. I'll create bigger chunks to add variety in between, and I'll edit velocities and timings to make it sound a little more natural. Add little fills. And this one, you can really notice that. If you listen to it from beginning to end, there's little bits of percussion that just happen some of the time. But that's the song Elasticity. All right, let's move on to the next. This is the song The Bygone's Wake, and it was originally titled Lo-Fi. I was doing sort of my own take on, I guess, the lo-fi genre of just dark piano and guitar and a slow dark percussion, as you'll see. Taking influence from that sort of style. So I came up with this little idea, which I liked, the piano especially. It's a Labs piano, this free Spitfire Audio soft piano, which is quite nice. And then what was I doing with this? It's the second section. The chords kind of remained the same, but that piano totally changed. What do we got here? An operator, a warm operator patch, and then this. Not gonna sound like anything, but it's these acoustic guitar samples from somewhere in the Ableton library. I can find out here. The Mood Reel pack, and I did my own thing to them, putting them in a sampler to get a plucky acoustic. What is this? Guitar. Yeah, didn't like that apparently. What was this guitar here? Oh, okay. This is a fairly formed idea for like a, ground zero song, which is kind of cool. Let's see where it went. So here we got things a bit more fully formed. A little intro idea. This guitar became kind of like the melody. Eventually. That's interesting, I forgot about that. I'm just soloing around, trying to find melody. I'm not a natural singer. I don't sing. I kind of sing it to have lyrics in my songs or to have a vocal melody when it needs it. So I'll often get melody from a guitar part or a synth part that I then put lyrics to and sing to. Here I'm just messing around. Let's see what this section is. Okay, yeah, that guitar stayed. Chiral synth there, which sounds really nice. That reverb that's attached to it is really long and nice. Some songs form a bit quicker, and this one seems like it's forming a lot quicker than some of the other ones did. Alright, lots of acoustic takes, apparently. Okay, yeah. That I have yet to edit down in this version, apparently. Let's see what it's over here. Ah, the little guitar solo. This is happening in the back of the song, and it's really messy. But I don't know. I like it. You'll see what it ends up being. It gets edited a little bit, but it's back there. I have a lot of strange balance between heavily edited or sequenced parts of the music and then extremely loose off time, shoddy kind of almost pieces that are, way more human to me. And I've been allowing myself to keep those in there as they are. And I like that about this part. All right, let's keep moving on. So this looks a bit more refined, and I've got some vocals and some flute. Yep, it's pretty rough right now, but that flute sound is mainly just the flute through this box, and it just becomes this ambience rather than like you can recognize it as a flute. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, I improvised little parts and edit them. I trail off a lot. Like if I'm just playing and I mess up, I'll do this where I just trail off. I do that with guitar too, and sometimes you find really interesting things in that. Like your mind lets go of what you were trying to play, and you just improvise something. And you know, if 95% of the time it's crap, if it's worth doing for that 5% of the time where you find something that you came up with that you never would have came up with if you're just trying to record the specific part that you were trying to record. I recommend it. Just after you do a few takes, just trail off and just go nuts. Slam your keyboards, blow, keys, and go crazy with your flute or saxophone or guitar or whatever your instrument is. Even if you don't play an instrument, you can edit it later. This is the beauty of digital audio. All this stuff. Some of it got kept, most of it got thrown away. I'm just meandering. I create a space here for myself to just meander around and see what happens. See, like I think I grabbed that one little part there, as you'll see later on. Like that. I never would have thought to do that if I had composed the part. Let's see what we got over here. Just jamming out. That's about it. All right, let's see how this gets edited down. So there's a bit more flute edited in. Let's see what we got here. I don't know what's going on here. Trying to figure out an intro or maybe another section. I don't think that got kept. Let's see how this comes in here. This little flute through that reverb just brings it in on this little snap. Bring in the vocal. And then I just found one flute part to repeat. Let me see what goes on here. Let's see, it's heavily edited. So I found, like, this is just one section of this, and another little section that I edited to be this part. And I think I did multiple edits across, because sometimes when you get a loop like that, it's going to sound static, and I wanted this to sound like a loop but a little less static, so I think I edited little flubs off there, but also the timing. I remember changing the timing a bit for each one to make them sound a little like allowing some of those to poke through, those little flubs, but then cutting them out other places just to make it sound more natural. Because if you're playing the flute, like if I was playing that loop, it would not sound remotely the same each time. My articulation would be a little different. I might slip on a key a little bit slower, faster, and so sometimes I'll just edit that in because I like the way this recording sounds rather than playing it in. It's that hybrid between the two, I guess, that I like. You can hear that acoustic guitar part too is just finding its way. A lot of work to do on it yet, though, still. let's move up ahead. All right, this is the final version. I did a lot of mixing, re-recording of things, editing, boring stuff, really, that just takes time and makes it sound better. I think I had another verse at the end that I got rid of because it was getting too long. So here we go, let's see. Expanded on that chiral part to copy the flute here. So they're doubling each other. I added actual acoustic. That used to be just that mood reel sample. Acoustic piano. Heavily EQ'd those acoustic parts. They're all together here. The actual acoustic and the samples. And this flute has this reverb on it that goes from wet to dry here to bring the flute out for this final section. Right here, I've got a lot of different melodies going on here. I've got the flute doing its thing. I've got this guitar doing its thing. And I've got this piano doing its thing. A very like simple childish melody in the background. Sometimes I like focusing on one of these individual parts in my mind when they're all going. Solo that is super messy but fits in there. These little flute flubs come in. Charles just edited from that improv session. And I like how this little pop sound, which is actually a flute, I like edited the ending of it just to pop, and between that and the piano, it kind of just has an interesting rhythm. And that's the Bygone's Wake. All right, this is the song Halves. I've got one of my Cole kits for the drums and some CS chords going. Let's see what else we got. So I was obviously just improvising on my CS, but I was just looping it, I guess. Finding chords. Just one way to start a basic idea. Let's see where it went. I slowed it down, apparently. All right, let's keep moving. A lot of this is just trying things out. You know, if you have an idea, if you have a thought sometime when you're working on music and it's just like, I wonder if something. I run it through a delay, I run it through distortion, I reverse it, I add a octave up, whatever it is. As soon as you have that thought, do it. That is creativity right there. When you have that I wonder if thought, or what would this be like if, just do it. That is where ideas come from. And if you don't actually do the thought that you thought, you're not going to be able to get anywhere. So really making music is just thinking about what could happen and making it happen, for me anyway. And I highly encourage you to just listen to what you've got and think about what you could do with it. And chances are you'll make progress. So here, let's see what I did. Looks like some arrangements. Okay, this is totally different. The drums are the same, so this is completely different from what I had before. Apparently I totally got rid of that CS thing and made these chords. Got some strings and guitar coming up. Let's see what it sounds like. This is the beginning of what ends up in the song, but it's extremely rough at this point. It's so funny how sometimes you have that, like that CS part I just played, just did not end up, it just did a complete left turn. No. And I'm just jamming out with some fuzzy guitar. But I hear the part that it becomes. If you're familiar, if you have heard this song of mine before, you might recognize some of the little pieces from this guitar part that ended up in there eventually. And it's just super rough at this point. Let's keep moving, because it sounds terrible right now. Something sounds not right with this pop. I think I ended up doing it an octave up or something. It's way different than it is on the album. Bass. I had this part on guitar, but then I recreated it on my filament instrument. Still editing this meandering guitar. Let's keep moving. So this song had an almost fully formed second section that I completely trashed. And this was that section. And you'll see as we go along here how it got developed and then ultimately deleted. It's not bad, but it just didn't like it eventually, I guess. Let's see where it went. What's this? Super basic drums from my Cole kit. Let me see here. Trying to repeat this guitar all the way through, I think. As I add the guitar, the part starts to form. Part that it ends up becoming ultimately anyway. I can hear parts that were kept. What's this? Yeah, this is that second section that never made it. Alright, let's keep going. At this point I added some acoustic guitar, which stayed in. Looks like I have a rough solo edited and got rid of those repeated sections. Something with this sounds off time, which I think I probably fixed at some point. Oh yeah, I remember this. This acoustic. It's like a chord and then reversed. I like the idea, but as a section, it just wasn't doing anything for me. See, I did some organizing. Still have this down an octave, I think. And some acoustic and some piano, scratch piano. I wanted a solo, piano solo to go along with this guitar solo, kind of call and response. And so here I'm just sort of improvising on the piano, trying to find something, and just like I do with the guitar, I'll do that, and then I'll edit out the parts I like. It's a bit of a mess right now because this is just the raw improvised material. But you can hear what it can become. That section pretty much ironed out. I still was trying to figure out what to do here. You can see how much time I wasted really on this section. And if you find that you're just working and working and working on a section and nothing's happening, just get rid of it. It's usually the best option in those cases. You can always come back to it, but sometimes it's best to move on. More refinements for this. I think I did some mixing. It sounds louder. Let me turn this down. What is going on with that piano? Something. It's like I got rid of a lot of stuff in this other section. Trying something totally different, which still didn't end up working. Sometimes I feel that a song needs another section. I feel that I just have to put one in, but then it doesn't work, and I'll just be okay with it just being a one section song. That happened more on this album than anything else that I've worked on for some reason. But I just find that I end up being okay with it being one section pieces. Although I like this, I like the feel of it. But for some reason I couldn't figure it out, how to make it work well enough to keep. Alright, let's keep moving. So here looks like I did do away with the other section entirely and recorded a bunch more acoustic. Just strum chords at this point. refining things towards the end. Sometimes I'll keep, you know, the scratch recordings in as long as possible, and then when I'm sure that things are set, I'll try and record better parts. This isn't even the new acoustic, so maybe I did it again. Let's see. Yep. Lots more acoustic. And upright acoustic piano rather than the MIDI. Let's listen. There's the acoustic in. I think I'm going to skip to the end here. Something is going on with this hue where it's off time. It's not like that when I did the final version, so I don't know what's going on, but we're not going to worry about it for now. I think what I liked most about this song was the interplay between the guitar and the piano, because they kind of call in response to each other, and they kind of get in each other's space. Let's see. EQ and compression and some reverb on the piano. The strings are this Ableton string quartet. Here's where they try and fight for that space. The guitar and the piano do, stepping on each other's toes. So that's the song Halves. And I just let it fade out with these new chords instead of going into that other section that I had developed earlier. This is the song Hammock, which I recorded my hammock, which has these ropes that if you pluck, it'll sound like a bass note. So you get stuff like this. You can hear birds in the background and all that. It's a crappy iPhone recording, but I'm trying to just find a pluck there that sounds good. And then I'll run it into a sampler. Let me see what we got here. Yeah, see, every sample has birds on it. I think I shelved this project because of that for a while. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? Make a bass guitar with a bird squeaking? Every one of them like right on the transient. I think I made this little riff here, which I did nothing with, but such is life. Let's see where it went. So then I just looped a part. Which you'll recognize is in the final piece. What's this? Other loops that did not get used. But I sat on this for a long time. I remember thinking, what am I gonna do with this? And it ended up becoming my favorite song on the album. All right, what do we got? I went in a totally other direction. I'm gonna skip this stuff because it's crap. I had this melody in my head, and it would bend up like that. And it ended up being a really bad idea, and I wasted a lot of time on it, so I'm going to skip ahead here. So ultimately I came up with this. A really rough little idea, but it's got some legs. It's looped guitar part. And some strings and brass from the Ableton string and brass presets, string quartet, brass quartet. What's this? Some bass. Some strings from my Broom instrument, and that Hammock sample. Alright, this one took a lot of steps, so bear with me here. Arrangement and some vocals, which I'm probably going to regret playing you. Scratch stuff, trying to figure out where the melody is, what the lyrics are. I do a lot of fake words or random words to figure that out. But it's coming along. Strings kind of move things along. And this brass, I just ended up having that little fall and delaying it. And that's all it's doing, but you'll notice it in there, and it's just adds this little color. Repro patch. This is one of those ideas that just slowly developed over time. I think this is one of the first, besides that Broken Loop song, this was probably the earliest on the album. Alright, what's next? So now I got a bit more form. I think that first part is mostly the same. Let's see where I go with it here. It's acoustic. Guitar. Yeah, that's what's in there at the end, but it sounds really rough right now. Sort of the same thing, same trend of recording improvs and editing them down into something that sounds natural. It's rough right now, but it gets ironed out in the end. I'm trying to figure out how to progress the song from A to B. So this is really that same similar arrangement with added stuff. I have the flute kind of echoing the vocal a little bit. Oh, this guitar here, you'll hear it. It's got a delay on it. Just creates an atmosphere, kind of jiggling my fingers on the strings. And I like how it brings you into that section. It sounds better in the end version, of course, but I'm just being playful with it. It sounds so rough on its own, but in there it just adds a texture that, here, let's listen to it without it. It's empty. There's this little flitty guitar. Totally makes the part. Piano. It's kind of playing along with the guitar there. Listen to these two together. I like when kind of instruments merge like that and intermingle and go their separate ways. It's interesting to me. That's when I keep coming back to. It's like one section then the other, slightly different, shorter versions, slightly different, so on and so forth, to create the form of this song. I'll change that eventually. Oh, this is that atmospheric guitar, which I like to concentrate on when I'm listening to the song. It provides this kind of tension notes in there. This end section got changed a bit from this. Just trying to figure out some flute lines in there. I don't think this piano is in the final version. What's this? Just leaving bits and pieces to elaborate on at some point. Let's see what happens. Alright, at this point, you can see I redid the acoustic guitar and recorded a bunch of flute. Let's see what we got. This looks unedited. Oh, and out of tune. It's possible I didn't keep this. Sometimes I'll record, like, these are two different microphones. It shows us in C42, which is a small condenser microphone, and SM7B, which is a dynamic. And I'll record both at the same time to figure out what tone that I want. I mean, here, hold on. So it's not phasing. And then I'll pick from there, or maybe I'll do something like this to get a like weird sounding stereo effect. I'm not sure what happened with these though. I think that I might have not used them entirely. But new acoustic, not mixed well right now. I might skip ahead a bit because I have a feeling that a lot of this is going to be editing and re-recording and mixing, so we'll see where we land here. I skipped ahead to the final version here. It's a bit of a mess with editing and mixing in here. Because the form remained more or less the same. Vocals, I did a stereo, left and right. I do that a lot. And the vocal kind of melds into the flute, throws the melody at the flute. Flute throws the melody back at the vocals. It kind of steals the melody, actually. So this is a repeat of this. Then we move into this section. Lots of acoustic. I recorded the piano, my acoustic piano, rather than having the samples. I added guitar, I believe. I know I added this guitar, this solo bit towards the end here, which you'll hear. lot of this is from the that very original guitar improv. So now this comes in. This guitar solo part. This gets repeated and then the solo comes in. Here and here. What was that? Something messed up there. Yeah, this is a solo. It's tucked back in there. Added some flute bits here that add on to each other to ramp up trills. And that's Hammock. Alright, so this is the song Offshoot. This first idea here, the song came a long ways, let's just put it that way. Got this little drum part from my Cole kit. That part didn't change. Or really that much anyway. This repro, oops, arpeggio. It's like a pyramid. Guitar, what is this? What's going on here? Something doesn't sound right. Huh. Sounds like a lot of different improvs kind of mixed together. It's out of key. And judging by this naming convention, I think I started a song and then maybe found out it could go another way and named it Offshoot, which is what the song is called. But this was a long time ago. I don't remember what I was thinking. So let's move on to 1.0. Alright, got that drum groove, got arpeggio. And that guitar stayed in there, that I recognize that. This one I don't. Let's turn that off. It's ambient tone, just doing a couple notes. And a bass. Listen to that guitar. Oh my god, no wonder I had it muted. What are these vocals? So it was a surprise. Let me turn this up. I mean, it's extremely messy right now, but you gotta put a seed in the dirt, right? Let's see what sprouts. Okay, so this guitar comes in that kind of that same sort of just brushing my fingers against the strings. This has no business being there. All right, let's keep moving. An arrangement. Let's see what we got. Okay, the guitar is formed here. Trying to figure out some sort of sound structure. I mean, that is the meat of it, but it needs to be heavily refined. I'm just gonna go step by step here, see what we got. Let's see what changes. Looks like we added some vocals here. Some more final anyway. Atmospheric vocals. That don't sound very good. We'll skip ahead here, see if I can get the vocals nailed down in another version. All right, we got a pad here. It's that same pad. Can I have the guitars building as an arrangement? Looks like I bounced down the repro. Let's see what we got here. Bass. So this synth line here, this melody, it's so kind of random, but I like it like that. Like it's always going to hit an unexpected note, almost. Unexpected in where it is and the pitch as well. The vocals are edited in at this point. I got a wide stereo spread here. Let's see what that sounds like. In the they're still not edited properly, you'll notice. That, I mean, to really nail that down, they all have to be aligned, which I think I do later. But this random melody is what kind of, for me anyway, keeps propelling the song forward. Kind of always wondering what note is going to come next. And it goes away for a bit. Also, you'll notice, oops, how these vocals come in at different points in the loop. This one and this one come in. No, this one comes in here. This one comes in here. This one comes in towards the end of this pad. This is the sort of bass that I think of as the harmonic progression. And so between that and this random melody up here, I think that's where most of the excitement is created, because otherwise this is just looped guitar part that's creating this whole textural background here. And even these, you can see how they're looped differently. This is an odd length loop. That is a 4.5 measure loop, 4 measure loop, 4 bar loop, 6 bar loop. So they're all different, and some of them are very odd. Like this is not in time at all. That part. And it all kind of meshes and swims together in this atmospheric, kind of swelling, wavy sound. Alright, let's move ahead. Alright, there's been some mix tweaks in this version, and I added some acoustic and another kind of lead guitar towards the end here to interplay off those random repro melody notes. Some extra percussion, just a hi-hat sound to move things along. Grooves a little bit more now. Just a touch. I didn't want it too groovy. I didn't want a full percussion section, just those toms and these acoustics. What's going on here? Just some... very wavy, very rough again. You see it coming and going, right? I'm manually going louder and softer. Of course, it all gets compressed to hell, so I don't know why I even bother. No, but it does add a different texture and tone to the sound that just adds a subtle waviness. All right, I think we'll go to the end here because I think it's mostly, we got the form in place at this point. All right, so that's all the tracks from my album Relentless Relay. I hope you guys go back and listen to these and maybe have some fresh ears for some of the things I talked about. I know it's hard to get a real sense of the music being presented to you piecemeal like this. I really wanted to just talk about the overall compositional ideas rather than really dive into the sound design or anything like that. So I hope it did give you some ideas about how to get stuck out of some ruts that you can get into when you're composing and working like this, and maybe offer you some ideas of how to get some of the songs you might be stuck on into a place where you're happy with them. But it was really fun to do this and talk about my process. I hope you enjoyed it too.